Good afternoon, good evening, Niner faithful. Welcome to a special roundtable episode with your host, Rob Schuh. Very excited to be joined at the Combine. We are right across the street from Lucas Oil Stadium. It is right out this window. I am here with Jordan Elliott and Jason Aponte. Gentlemen, how are you doing this afternoon? A pleasure having you here in this roundtable discussion.
I'll let the celebrity go first.
Yeah, please,
Will you
please,
stop?
Hollywood Aponte.
Will you stop?
Please.
Will you stop living the dream, literally? And it's not any slight, but don't start with that, guys. Come on.
Hey man, the mood is electric. There's a lot of energy, a lot of focus. It's been quite a day today.
I mean, quite honestly, this has been an incredible experience in my book. Everything about it has been fairly special. And I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about your initial impressions of the Combine. I know for me personally, in getting here, I was blown away by the stadium. Lucas Oil Stadium is one of those landmark big brick buildings, very imposing looking stadium. And then we walked into that convention center, and I was just struck by the magnitude of it. What has really impressed you about the Combine to this point so far? Jordan.
Just the sheer magnitude of the event. It's incredible seeing representatives from all 32 teams in the building, media outlets from all over the place. And pretty much, it feels like anybody who's anybody in the NFL world is in one small central area in downtown Indianapolis for these few days. So it's been really cool to just see how they're able to pull off an event of this magnitude and, have it happen just so seamlessly and have all these different people coming to speak while they're also doing meetings with players and they're also doing drills. Like, just the way that they've been able to pull this off has been pretty impressive, in my opinion.
The way they have correlated it and brought in everyone, synchronized the event has been very impressive. I mean, just honestly, the amount of equipment that's there, it's true. Seeing all of these front offices, I'm struck by, we'll be sitting on a freaking chair somewhere and John Harbaugh will walk by and say hello to you, right? I mean, it's just wild. Jason, what have been your impressions of the event so far?
I mean, thank you for bringing that up because I've been trying to keep my fan in check, right? Like
the inner fan. As I raise my chair, because you two are way too tall for this, so I got to make sure I don't look like the midget in the group. That's probably the wrong word to use there. The short person in the group.
No, so it's really hard to separate the fan right now for me, right? John Harbaugh comes by and says, "What's up?" We talked to Mike McDaniel, which we'll talk a little bit further about. But the thing that I'm walking away with is the NFL is the only year-round sport, the only one, right? Like there's things going on in Major League Baseball, obviously not right now with the lockout. There's things that happen in the NBA, but name a sport that has the Super Bowl and then all of a sudden everything turns into the Senior Bowl, then the Combine, then free agency starts, and then all of a sudden you're right back in the saddle with training camp. So the NFL is the draw, right? The draw in terms of sports, in terms of year long keeping your attention. And that's the thing that I'm really blown away with is the attention to detail and everything that they've done. And in considering last year, the fact that the Combine didn't happen, this seems to be moving without a hitch in terms of, the media room has platforms for NFL Network, CBS Sports, Sirius XM, for everybody else. And it's impressive to see how the NFL continues to deliver and is still the premium sport in this country. So I'm going to die on that hill.
Yeah, no doubt it is a premium sport. They are putting out a premium product, and everything about this event speaks to that. It is class from top to bottom. I felt that same way about just being impressed by what the NFL is putting on here in Indianapolis. And it seems like an ideal city to host it. I'll be quite frank that I don't know why they're exploring taking it out of Indianapolis. It seems to be a great location. People really seem to enjoy it. It's central for folks to fly in. To me, I was also struck, and Jordan, you touched on this a little bit, but you see all of these familiar faces around. And to me, it's just amazing to watch all of these nationally recognized individuals, Ian Rappaport, all of these celebrities coming together and just being one of the crowd, right? What you can tell is that they are very much immersed in the experience, very friendly with one another, and super approachable throughout. I felt that with everyone I have come into contact with in rubbing elbows. And I do want to get into that. I do want to talk about rubbing elbows, but let me get to a couple of our comments here first. We do have Ken Fashion Journey coming in. Hi, Rob. What happened to John Lynch's forehead? An injury? No, Ash Wednesday. It's how all of us learned that today was Ash Wednesday. Did not realize that coming
They had a room for you to go in and have that done also in the convention center. So they're not playing games. I mean, it is Indiana. Pretty religious.
It is indeed. Ken, also complimenting you, Jason, on your haircut, liking the fit. The three of us have all done a great job in smashing the outfits, both day one and day two at the combine. Let me say that. Jamal Armstrong coming in. I just see three goats. Appreciate that, Jamal. Love it. Swan Song coming in. This is a great question that must be answered. At Rob Schuh, who would win a 40-yard dash out of the three of you? I'm going to volunteer to be the slowest in the group. So between you two, who's winning the 40-yard dash?
I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of belief in Jordan Elliott and anything that he does. So it'd be hard for me to pick against him.
I think Jason Aponte's long legs would be the advantage in any sort of foot race, just based on the strides he'd be able to take. But I've seen this man I've seen him in pro day form. I haven't seen him in combine form. So based on pro day form, I'm winning that 40. But if he, turns it up to another gear, I have a hard time doubting this man. So I begrudgingly say me, but that's subject to change based on his motivation.
Long in the legs, but longer in the tooth, I think, is really what you should be.
So you'll be winded quickly is most likely. There's one sprint that occurs and then game over.
There's a reason. There's a reason I cover the sport. Don't try to play.
I'll tell you what, you get me running 40 yards in a straight line, I'm going to end up like Coco Diaz in, Longest Yard, where he's like, can of corn, I'll be fine. Can of corn. You guys better not cut me. That's going to be me.
Love it. We've got that Niner guy coming in at Rob Schuh. You guys look like a round table for a TV show. Looking sharp, boys. One of you should tail John to see who he's talking to. That is a great point, and we are going to. Tonight, after Sprint Right Option podcast, which is happening over on Jason's channel, the three amigos here are headed out to do some sleuthing. We will be at all of the bars we need to be attending in order to see who John Lynch is having that late night cocktail with. I'm convinced that the deal for Jimmy Garoppolo happens out here. Do you not get a sense that deals are in the making in this environment? I feel like all these front offices are ready to have some deep conversations here.
Yeah, well, John Lynch mentioned too that part of the when he was asked what benefits he gets out of coming to the combine because Kyle Shanahan isn't here, so they're asking what he as a GM gets. What's his benefit from being here? What does he get out of it? And he did mention that league business needs to get done, and it's much easier, no matter how much technology we have in this day and age. It's much easier to conduct business face to face and have that interaction and have that exchange. And hey, if you want to talk to a team about a potential player, a potential move, or something like that, instead of having to get on the phone, get on Zoom, whatever, you have that person at your disposal to have that face to face encounter. So I do think that there's a lot at play here. There's also, at the same time, we have to remember there's a lot of agents here representing not only players in the combine, but players who are also already in the NFL.
Great
point. It's kind of an unspoken thing, but these GMs have basically come out and said, like, yes, there is a lot of deals being, talked about right now. That is kind of it's kind of a gray area, for what they're supposed to, tampering period starts in a couple of weeks, but there's definitely, movement that starts now.
Yes. And most of it is going to happen over a drink, right? Like these discussions, yes, obviously these are responsible adults, but the talks will open up when, things loosen up, when guys have a drink and they, unbutton their collar. So pretty much like it's a dude's league. So, I mean, that's how they would probably be interacting at that point. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully do some ear hustling tonight, try to figure out what's going on, maybe buy somebody a drink so it can stand a little bit closer. But that's the nature of the game. So, this is going to be the fun part, actually, because the combine is so much. It's the interviews are very generic answers at times, unless it's Mike McDaniel, who never gives a generic answer at all. But for the most part, most of these answers are just scripted as they are, unless you throw a complete curveball question, which would probably not get answered correctly.
Right. Jackhammer coming in. The good gentleman, Jackhammer. The three amigos are killing it. Keep up the good work, gentlemen. Appreciate that, Jackhammer. Andre
Thanks,
Moore coming in, one of the sneakerheads here on the channel. At Rob Schuh, your thoughts on the Drano nickname for Elijah Mitchell? Always finding the right hole. I thought that was pretty clever myself. Jason, you seem to approve.
I do, actually. I mean, when he said that, and he said he's always going to find the hole and everything as well, too, I thought it was great. That's something that if you pitched me that idea and said it earlier, I would have said, I don't really like it, but the way John worded it was really good. John has a way with words, and he's very good with the press. So I was impressed by it. I like it.
Yeah, I was fond of it as well. And speaking of first impressions, I mean, what's your vibe on the studio setup here that we've got? You know, I rearranged all the furniture in the room. I've taken everything. It looks as if some madman has taken over this room. I can't possibly bring a guest back to the room. They'll be like, what have you done? You've moved your couches up into the kitchen. But the studio is looking good, right? You guys feel good as the first guests on my Johnny on the spot, whatever, Johnny Carson set up. Yes.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it speaks to the way you think, and you're always been thinking outside the box. I mean, because with if I was gonna do this, it would probably be, hey Jordan, go in the other room, open up your laptop, and I'll just go sit over here. So yeah, I mean, no one besides Batman is more prepared than Rob Schuh at this point. Nobody.
I would say it's a feather in Rob's cap. He is a pioneer of the hotel studio. So.
The hotel studio is in full effect right now. We had audio issues, but we've got it dialed in at this point. I'm telling you, the hotel room drip is real.
Oh my goodness,
at this
man.
point,
Oh my
ladies
goodness.
and gentlemen. Ben Meyerson coming in here. Drip Squad is the new name, apparently. Swan Song, who is also the newest member of the channel, just joined up as a sneakerhead, says, this makes me want to retire and do this for fun. I think that's how we all feel about this as well. This week has certainly made me believe this is the career choice that I want for the rest of my life. Swan Song coming in. Got to celebrate that. Appreciate you joining the sneakerhead crew. All right, let's transition into that next topic, which is about rubbing elbows. And this is not to, throw out names, but let's throw out some names of people that we've been kicking it with. I'll start with a few of the more casual 49ers beat reporters that we all got a chance to speak with on day one. Matt Mayoko was very gracious with his time. He and Jennifer Chan both came over and gave us some incredible insights, I felt. And then also in standing there and conversing with David Lombardi of The Athletic as well. I was just very impressed with the level of friendliness and professionalism from all three in speaking to us about their observations here at the Combine. What were your impressions of those conversations, Jason?
Again, it's very easy to make assumptions about people that you've never met.
Yes.
But once you get a chance to meet these people, they were very nice with their time, very nice with us. And it just kind of stomps on a little bit of like whatever it is that you had or whatever preconceived notion you had. Matt was very nice with his time and gave us opinions, and it was candid and it was straight from the hip, and it never felt forced or anything like that. Jennifer Lee Chan was great, talking about Jordan's with Niners Nation. That's where she started, which was something that I picked up on as well too. And so everybody gets their starting point. And and David Lombardi's just a nice guy, man. Like he just really is, man. I don't know what else to say. I mean, he's just a really nice guy, and I had a blast talking with them. And in those moments when you are speaking to people that are in the positions that you want to be, the best thing to do is to ask questions and try to pick their brain as much as we can. And we did that. But overall, positive vibes, man. Everything was amazing in terms of that. And it's a little bit surreal to talk to people that you've looked up to, right? Like, especially when we do this stuff, like the people who are in the positions that you aspire to be in. And they're also gracious with their time, and they were very nice and humble. So, I mean, there's nothing more that needs to be said about them.
I thought the same of, especially Matt Mayoko, who, of that group is someone that I have followed for the longest time. That's someone that I've looked up to as the primary beat reporter for the San Francisco 49ers the vast majority of my adult life, going back to when he made appearances at University of the Pacific and I was a student at the university, and seeing him on campus again covering the Niners. And I thought he did speak very candidly, in particular when he was referencing Jimmy Garoppolo and the trade value, and potentially getting to a point where if there is not a trade market for Jimmy Garoppolo, taking a very hard line stance on the idea that, yes, he believes Jimmy Garoppolo would be cut prior to the start of the new league year. And that becomes very intriguing with some of the injury news that came out there. It was impressive just to bump into the folks that we did throughout the combine. Jordan, what were some of the most memorable instances of rubbing elbows for you so far?
Oh, hands down, I got shushed by Jacina Anderson, who is a phenomenal reporter. She is somebody I've watched for years. And, we were talking behind, and, when it's funny, you say rubbing elbows is this kind of phrase, but you're literally in a scrum with 20, 30 other reporters, literally rubbing elbows, trying to get these quotes. I'm loud. I talk loud sometimes, and I am unaware of how loud I'm being. And she wasn't rude at all. She just kind of was like, come on, I'm trying to get my quote. And it was so funny because after I apologized, I'm like, I'm so sorry, Jacina. And she was just the sweetest, nicest person ever. Wasn't upset, was super cool, dapped Jason and I up. So for me, that was a legendary experience. I got shushed by Jacina Anderson. In hindsight, it's hilarious. I'd much rather not be in a position where I'm making it more difficult for somebody trying to do their job. But the fact she was able to laugh it off for me, that's something I'll never forget. Right. I thought it was really cool. Rob had mentioned too, when we were in between, there's a lunch period where there's people aren't coming to the podium, about an hour and a half or so. And we just found a place to sit down, get on our computers and kind of work. And it was funny. John Harbaugh, the head coach of the Ravens, walked by and, unprompted, we didn't say anything to him. And he's like, he said hi to us. He said, hey, you guys look dug in. He kind of could tell we were, we're out there grinding. So it's kind of cool. At the end of the day, you're in these positions with these people where, yes, they may be coaches or executives, or they may be these national reporters, but you're all there working. And that's what's kind of cool is that in my experience so far in these couple of days, nobody's been big leaguing any of us, or oh, I'm too good to say it. You see people like Peter Schrager where they're happy to come and say hi, and Ian Rappaport, they're happy for you to come up and shake their hand and introduce themselves. It's really cool, the kind of camaraderie you see, and the fact that there is this sense of community. And I think that's super special because it's rare that you find a line of work where a lot of people are anxious to just network the way that it's going on here. So yeah, it's been really cool that no matter who you are, where you write for, you're somebody while you're here, and people are going to treat you with that kind of respect. It feels amazing. Yeah, and that's funny too because I got a chance to meet Kiana Martin today.
Yes,
I introduced myself to Ian Rappaport. I met Matthew Berry. This is we're talking about the top of the top, and yes, each of them were so nice to have a few seconds at a time where I could pass along some nice words to them and tell them how big of a fan I was. So again, while we're trying to break into this, there is room for respect and admiration amongst your peers, and as Jordan alluded to, none of these people, Ian Rappaport could have looked at me and said, who the hell are you, dude? And just kept it moving. He was really nice about it. We talked for a little bit, real quick. He was out the door with Tom Pelissero, but it's crazy to be on the other side, right? We get the label podcaster, all that stuff. To be on the other side now a little bit and to, be able to talk with these people, it's still surreal, and it's something that I will not take for granted. And it's extremely humbling.
It really is. And nobody has felt like they've been big time in anybody else. Everyone has given anyone that comes up to them the time of day. It is phenomenal, the camaraderie that you feel within the media, and that it is a very approachable format. I thought I'm just struck by the number of front office guys and coaches that are willing to strike up a conversation, let alone the media folks, the Ian Rappaports, the Peter Schrager, all of them super approachable. Every time I or someone else I have seen has approached one of those individuals, they have stopped, they have been cordial. We were watching this evening, right? Where it was, who was that was giving 20 or 30
Brandon
minutes?
Staley,
Brandon Staley giving 20 minutes of his time after he had already done his presser to stop and have conversations. It just has been phenomenal. I thought the off-the-cuff conversation that we had with Mike McDaniel right before he went up to the presser was just delightful.
That's the moment of the combine right now for me.
That was phenomenal. He is so approachable, such an easygoing dude. And it was him. I mean, he was just conversing with the three of us. He's like, so which one of you guys is speaking next? And I mean, it was great the way in which he interacted with us. He expressed his gratitude for 49er faithful, the amount of support that he's getting in his new gig for Miami from San Francisco fans. He said that was very touching to him and wanted to pass that along. Yeah. I thought that was a very cool piece that he shared with us.
And very candid too, you know, openly, like, you know, shooting the S word with us and just, like completely just being fluid with it. And, you know, it's easy to strike up a conversation with somebody that's approachable. Like, we're going through the same sort of, what's the security, right? We're all going through the security. He comes through and the first question I asked is like, Coach, I was like, you know, we're all proud of you over here, but favorite Mike Jones song. And boom, he jumps right into it. He's like going clubbing with Paul Wall, like immediately knew the song. And then after that, you know, we talked about how we cover the 49ers, and he said how appreciative he was of how he's been treated and the love that he's received, man. You know, it's hard not to root for Mike McDaniel. I told him multiple times, and Jordan and Rob did. We all told him the entire time, we're all rooting for you, man. Like, if I could have a second team right now to cover or to root for, it's probably going to be the Miami Dolphins.
No doubt about it. I'm going to have a soft spot in my heart for the Miami Dolphins this season. I just can't deny it. All right, let's get into a couple of comments as we transition here. Ellis10, did you guys get a chance to explore any good restaurants last night? So this worked out that Jordan was gassed yesterday. This man pulls
on a red eye,
freaking all-nighter on the red eye, goes like a champion throughout the day, like a freaking warrior. But then needed a little recharge at that point, right? So
I was up for 30 hours straight, and the only thing I ate was Stouffer's French bread pizza.
I would also like to say that, like, don't downplay Stouffer's French bread pizza, though. Like, that's the thing about it.
Stouffer comes hard. Let me tell you.
I'm just saying, I was not in a position to go out on the town with these fellas. I was
on the town.
I was tapped out, man.
Well, we did. We went out for we found some good tacos, because when you're thinking great tacos, you think Indianapolis. That's the first town that comes to mind when I think, where am I going to get myself some damn good tacos? Indianapolis, Indiana is where. But they were decent. And then we went on a mission to try and I got a freaking sweet tooth. So we tried to find some dessert. No luck on the dessert front. We ended up at a gas station for me to buy some damn ho-hos.
I tried, Rob. I tried to, meet you halfway. I get another drink, you get your dessert, but it just didn't work out that way. And that's how it moves from there.
It did not. But hey, tonight we are going to make sure that we're getting out there. We're going to be at some spots that will have good food and those drinks, because we are going to be looking out for John Lynch and whomever he is there with. We've got Mario coming in with a super chat. Nice to see you guys together. Have a nice time. Thank you very much. We most certainly will. Appreciate all of you for coming in here. We've got Lucas coming in. I really appreciate what you guys do. Great stuff. Great from across the world, from Vienna, Austria, all the way to Indianapolis, Indiana. Appreciate that. Ellis10 got the comment. Excellent footage on Christian Watson, sir. It's greatly appreciated. We're going to get to that one in just a moment. Let me bring in that next topic and bring up the news of the day. And that was John Lynch and his presser. Now, I am certain that the vast majority of you all have seen it on some format, whether it was the San Francisco 49ers website or Jason Aponte's Twitter, where he proudly put up that video because he was the first one to ask that question. But we are talking a little bit initially about the comments earlier in the day about Garoppolo's surgery. Jordan, how do you feel the news about Jimmy Garoppolo having surgery on his shoulder impacts the 49ers and their ability to get a trade done at this point in time?
Well, first of all, I want to wish a speedy recovery to Jimmy Garoppolo, first of all. No matter what your feelings are on the player, if somebody's playing hurt and they're playing through injury like that, the first thing that I would always wish is that they have a, quick and easy recovery from whatever that injury may be. I don't think it's really going to affect it. From what John Lynch said, it sounds like it's, it's a procedure. You don't want to downplay anybody's medical procedure, but it's not something where there's going to be a question mark after, or it's a concern that he won't be the same player. It just needs time to heal. And I think ultimately There's enough teams out there that are needy, that do need a quarterback. We talked to Martin Mayhew. I was able to ask him a question earlier, and he came out and said, he's like, we're looking to upgrade the quarterback position. We're looking at all avenues. We were open to trading for a veteran. He has familiarity with Jimmy Garoppolo. So there are teams out there who are making it very clear. And I'm sure there's plenty of teams out there who may not be making it very clear, who are open to, trading for a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, where, it may not be this deal where they're going to ship off multiple first-round picks and have this franchise savior.
Right.
But they'll get a guy that it has shown at times he can at least guide the ship to a certain extent. And as many 49ers fans are sick of that and want off this roller coaster ride that has been the Jimmy G experience, it's a massive upgrade for a lot of teams. You'd be surprised how much worse it could get. So, I think a deal still gets done regardless of the injury.
I thought you asked a very great question to Martin Mayhew. It was creatively phrased in a way that would have allowed him to hint at pushing for Jimmy Garoppolo. He danced around that question like a salsa dancer. I mean, it was adept movement by Martin Mayhew. I was impressed at his ability to both answer it and avoid your question in its entirety. That was phenomenal.
Speaking of, I also got owned by not only Justina Anderson, but also Kevin
Colbert.
The GM of the Steelers.
Getting owned on the regular.
So I understand. Like, it's so funny. People they're like, you can't ask on Chamber. What a dumb question. I'm like, yeah, of course not. But he might give an answer that I can work with or give me something. He just was flat out like, no, I'm not answering that. We won't speak about players or college. We're like, no, it's not happening. And the way he stared into my soul, man. I was like, all right, dude, you got me.
Yeah, man.
You win this round, Kevin.
You win this round.
So I've been getting cooked all week out here.
And speaking of staring into souls, the Ravens general manager has a distinct eye contact thing, because I asked a question about Rashad Bateman and I thought I was in trouble.
Ooh.
I thought I feel like I was in the principal's office, man. That just goes to show the type of demeanor that he has and the reason that he is the Ravens GM for so long. And Jordan asked a really great question about Lamar's extension on there, which actually wound up being articles for other places. So, I mean, it's been a fun time, man. It's just been interesting to notice the demeanors of different coaches, different GMs, and the way that they go about things. Everybody has their own style. I felt like the Eagles general manager, while he was on the next podium, seemed very candid. I was really impressed with the Ravens general manager. The Titans general manager also was very forthcoming. And then John Lynch is a pro, in terms of his media training. And that's why you get the answers that you get. And he never really seems too flustered, even for the body language experts out there.
No, he definitely has it down. No doubt about it. Bringing in Bay Area Baller 18, one of the sneakerheads on the channel, well known to this panel. Tell Lynch to draft Romeo Dubes for me. We all staked out Dubes, and he didn't come out for his media availability. I keep looking into my camera here, thinking I'm looking at the camera. The camera is there, Rob Schuh. The camera is there. No, but he didn't come out for his media availability. And then one of the individuals that was standing up there said something about him actually having pretty significant social anxiety about media in general, and that may have played into his decision not
yeah, I think he just mentioned he just doesn't really like doing media availability, so he doesn't know. That's not confirmed.
No.
But yeah, we definitely want to, and I watch it. I appreciate you, Eric. Eric's a smart guy. He knows what he's looking at. So I've watched the tape. I liked him. I had a couple questions I wanted to ask him. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but I understand things happen. And hey, I can't blame the guy. There's plenty of things I don't like doing either. So, who am I to judge if he doesn't want to come up and speak at the podium? But it could have been something else too. He could have been caught up in a meeting. It could have been something else. This person who was a reporter for another outlet just happened to mention that he knew somebody from the University of Nevada at Reno who said that he hasn't really been a fan of doing media stuff. So maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's not, but it is what it is. There's plenty of people who canceled. It wasn't just players. I don't want to just sit here. And
John Schneider did,
yeah. John Schneider didn't. Les Snead didn't. So all I can say is that John Lynch won the day as the only NFC West general manager to take the podium today.
Did. Yes.
What did he? Did he? No,
Right.
Khan did the day before,
right,
but
yeah.
Khan got a 7-year extension. So did he win the day?
Ooh.
John Lynch won the day because let me tell you, John Lynch flat out said that he was offered the bag that he had a Brinks truck backing up in his driveway, and he kicked them out.
He said he
kicked them out and he closed the gates.
He said he couldn't believe how much money they were offering him, and he still said no to that. That was something that kind of, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, that someone asked specifically about what Amazon offered, and he said, I can't believe they're offering that amount of money for analysts. So that should tell you something.
It was like a if I told you, you wouldn't believe me type deal.
Pretty much.
Yeah, like
big money.
Big money.
And what's bigger than flexing money is turning down
money.
Like for principal, that's the biggest flex. If you're able to just be like, you know what? No, like,
I don't need it. I'm good. Bringing this in, Bobby Mira, just because it's a compliment, so it gets on the screen. At Rob Schuh, didn't recognize you guys with those jackets on. Yes, we look dapper, don't we? Job interviews? Question mark. Hot. Love the show.
Trying.
Appreciate it, Bobby. We are all, in a job interview effectively. We all enjoy doing this and would gladly do it for some other big organization, big team. Hint, hint, 49ers, reach out. I mean, we're available. You could reach out to any one of us individually as a package deal. We can give you some sort of a discount there potentially. We shall see. All right, let's continue along the John Lynch presser, and let's talk a little bit about the Mike McGlinchey news. Somebody asked that question first and foremost. Jason, do you remember who it was that inquired to John Lynch about Mike McGlinchey?
Some podcaster who doesn't deserve the time or anything like that, I would say. I just feel like, John Lynch was going to be bombarded with the same type of questions in terms of what's going on with the quarterback, what's going on with this. But a lot of what happens with this team has to do with the offensive line. And, when you think about Mike McGlinchey, you think about the fact that he's not missed games at all until this injury, and he was the number 9 overall pick. This is not something that should be glossed over. And this is not something that should just be swept under the rug in terms of, well, is McGlinchey going to play next year? No, that is a big deciding factor in terms of how this offensive line is going to play and how they are going to build it. So I felt that it was prudent to ask that question. Hey, did I get a little overzealous? For sure. Just because what I learned while being media is it's kill or be killed in terms of questions. Like, you have to be able to just jump in and throw your voice out there at that time. Luckily for us, Miyoko, Jennifer Lee Chan, Kiana, they all got separate time. David Lombardi, they all got separate time with John Lynch, right? So they weren't necessarily asking questions. So that left Jordan, Rob, and I, who were predominantly the only people that really covered the team, I would want to say, like, from that aspect. Anybody that was there was just there out of their own curiosity and because the 49ers are such a stable franchise. But I felt like that was a good question to ask, only because that question and that answer and what goes on with right tackle is going to have a lot to do with how this offensive line is going to look next year. And the only part that John Lynch didn't answer, and maybe, he got wrapped up in the moment, didn't necessarily hear me, was how does that alter your draft strategy now? Because if Mike McGlinchey's not coming back, you have to find a way to look. Tom Compton was fine, but you have to find a way to plug that right tackle position for years.
Right.
I think we can all agree Tom Compton is not going to be that. So that's why I kind of threw that out there. But everybody was going to ask questions about, what's going on with Trey Lance, what's going on with Jimmy Garoppolo, what's going on with Trey Sermon, which is something that a lot of people want to know apparently. But I felt that it was good to talk about, this team's being built in the trenches. Why not ask that question? So
no question about it. Just going to bring in this comment before getting your thoughts on it as well. Sir Juju, rumors are McGlinchey injury is possibly career ending. Is that true? I just want to say from John's response, I would say pretty categorically that it doesn't seem to be trending that way. He felt very confident in his answer about Mike's current health and where Mike's health was trending towards. So I got the impression that my worries have been assuaged from John Lynch in what he said about it. Jordan, what was your sense of those words on Mike McGlinchey?
Yes, I agree. And it wasn't just from John Lynch. There's another source who could be, trusted, has a great track record with 49er stuff, who basically echoed the same sentiment the day before. So to hear it come from John Lynch too makes me feel a little bit better that things are trending the way they want to. It's a situation where, there's a long way to go with the rehab. It's an injury that a lot of players don't ever play at the same level at. So there might be a drop off in performance, but also something that was disclosed was that he had been dealing with a partially torn quad for quite some time, and it almost gave him a clean slate. You never want to be injured like that, but if there was a silver lining to something as tragic as having, your season cut short like that, it is that it at least gives him the time to get the surgery and hopefully start over with a fresh, clean slate. So there's no reason to not be optimistic until told otherwise. And I don't think that there's any reason for them to lie or hide their intentions with how Mike McGlinchey's rehab is going.
Yeah, I tend to agree. They don't really have an advantage by lying about that. The last piece that I wanted to touch on with John Lynch was his comments around Trey Lance. Now, I don't think that there's anything groundbreaking that was said there, and you could certainly argue that the company line right now is to pump up Trey Lance. But I certainly felt that John Lynch's comments about Lance and where he is and their continued optimism struck me as someone who is confident in the quarterback. Did you get that same sense, Jordan?
Yeah, 100%. And I actually was going to ask John Lynch a question about that, but he alleviated any, reasoning for having that or any concern about that, in my opinion, when he came out and he said basically that I feel as strong as ever that Trey Lance was the right pick. And I like all the things that we saw in the development that happened. And he mentioned that fans got a, brief glimpse of it when certain somebody leaked some practice footage that got out there.
Somebody.
So, if you've seen it, and if not,
if you know, you know.
If you know. So yeah, because that was going to be my biggest question for John Lynch was how do you feel now compared to almost a year ago when the pick was first made? So I was glad he was able to give us that with a, good amount of nuance and context behind it before having to even ask. So yeah, I think the quarterback situation will kind of take care of itself. And just like Rob mentioned earlier, like there's people who have been covering the team for a long time, people around the team have basically made it pretty clear that they're not completely ruling out that Jimmy Garoppolo might come back. They're just saying that if you look at it as logically as you can, it doesn't make any sense no matter how you slice it. So barring anything catastrophic happening to, Trey Lance between now and the start of the season, it looks like he's the guy to, move forward in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I don't think that those comments from John Lynch were surprising, but to me, they provided comfort. Is that how you felt as well, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, John Lynch a bunch of times said Jimmy Garoppolo's with us right now,
yes,
as a matter of fact statement, but it was pretty clear what was going on. So no matter what's being reported here and there from whoever at this point, it seems that there's a concerted effort to move Jimmy Garoppolo before things become worse. And, again, disclosed information was people around us were saying they'd be very surprised or shocked if Jimmy Garoppolo was still on this team. And these aren't my words. They're from words of people that you respect. And I'm not going to, we're not going to go ahead and do that. But, at the same time, the writing's been on the wall. And I think that any sort of discussion around it is based on getting clicks. And again, we're all content creators and I get that, but so are your favorite analysts at this point. And they know that riling up the hornet's nest that is 49ers Twitter is by even mentioning the idea that Jimmy Garoppolo could be back next year after trading for Trey Lance. So it's just right now, it's a lot of speculation and cooler heads will prevail. And the logic is just going to come to the top more than anything.
Yeah, you bring up a great point that the informed decisions, the informed opinions have never changed. And they're true right now. They've been reasonable throughout. But we have driven significant traffic from the national media who is doing that, who is attempting to keep people's ears and eyes on their content.
One last thing, Rob.
Not that I can fault them.
No, you're right. But one last thing. The coolest thing from John Lynch's press conference, the coolest thing, was him heaping praise on Mike McDaniel, not knowing that Mike McDaniel was 20 feet away from him. And Mike McDaniel was like, "Thanks, John." And he's like, "Oh, there you are, Mikey." That was the coolest thing, man. And that shows the culture that so many players and so many people around this team speak about, because that's literally somebody who's taking another job, but John Lynch couldn't stop heaping praise on him, man.
Tell me if it feels true to you as well. Mike McDaniel looked more at home, at place, in amongst the media, standing there among people that were like, about his same height. When you put him next to the coaches and the players, like he seems a little out of place there, just from an appearance standpoint. I didn't even notice him in the crowd until he piped up and John looked over at him.
Yeah, that was the coolest moment, honestly, man. I had a blast with that one. That was great.
Very cool.
Mike McDaniel's a funny dude.
Yes, man.
Way to put it. Like he's just a naturally funny person. Like we talked to him for a minute and a half maybe, and I was laughing like pretty much the entire time.
We were all smiling and laughing.
He's just one of those guys where you can tell his energy is infectious. That he's somebody who if people are going to want to be around, and players are probably going to want to play for.
Yeah,
him.
And he speaks because of the way we're dressed. And he's like, "So when are you guys going to go up and speak and everything?" And we're just like,
"You guys speaking?
You guys speaking?" And
I'm speaking.
I'm speaking. And he goes, "Wait, I got to talk." Like it's a guy who is very genuine, man. And I wish him nothing but the best. But yeah, no matter what it is that you see in those press conferences, if you talk with him for that little moments, the small moments that we got to speak with him, you would notice the same things, and you would know that that's not an act in any way.
Amen to that, sir. Juju, I just appreciate this. It's people, fans like you all, that do the footwork to keep us fans informed. Thank you guys, and keep up the great work. Go Niners. Thank you, Sir Juju. Appreciate that. And I honestly feel the same way about these guys. That Niner guy coming in, one of the sneakerheads on the channel, at Rob Schuh. I'm just glad Trey is the guy and they are sticking to their plan. Rodgers and Brady are pipe dreams, and glad that is being put to bed. Well, just keeping on the Trey Lance train, talking a little bit about Christian Watson's comments on Trey Lance as a leader. You know, I was there for Christian Watson in filming his responses because I'm intrigued by him as a prospect. But I'll be honest that I'm not overly optimistic the Niners are going to be able to bring him into the building. But I thought that it was still very valuable to hear his take on Trey Lance, regardless of whether the Niners are able to bring him in. Jordan, did you find that to be genuine praise that he was heaping on Trey Lance and calling him that guy, that dude repeatedly?
Yeah, I do. And this is why. So I asked Christian Watson 2 questions, and I started with, Trey was the number 3 pick last year. He's gone through this process, albeit not, the in-person combine, but he's gone through a lot of this pre-draft stuff. And I was like, hey, have you reached out to him? Have you talked to him about any, got into this? And he said, yeah, me and Trey talk. We're good friends, but we don't talk about that, So it wasn't like one of those situations where he's like going out of his way, he's doing this and that. Like, he was very, straightforward. He wasn't trying to make it seem like Trey was doing anything he wasn't. He was like, we're friends. We talk. We just haven't really talked about that. And I followed that up with, as his teammate. They were teammates together for 3 years. Like, how did you feel about him as a leader? And to me, like the way I look at it, like both of these guys with me right now, if you asked me to describe how I feel about them and what I perceive them as, I couldn't give you some like eloquent, answer that sounds like it's coming off a prompter or a script or something. I would say, I'd be like, hey, like Rob Schuh's that dude, like Jason Aponte is like that guy. Like he's just that dude who's going out there to get better every day. To me, it comes across as somebody who is speaking from the heart and isn't speaking with some scripted answer or some coached up answer where they're just throwing praise on somebody for the sake of doing it. And again, like, to me, it's gonna matter what you see on the field. Like talk is only so much, but you should feel excited about that because it's funny. I saw somebody comment on that earlier that like all quarterbacks are good leaders. I'm like, man, you'd be surprised how many are actually the complete opposite of what most people would objectively call a good leader.
Right.
I'm not here to slander Jay Cutler, just for the record. I'm a Jay Cutler fan, so I'm not going to slander Mr. Jay Cutler.
I am.
But I just think that it was very genuine and from the heart, and it's the same kind of praise I would give to somebody I respect, where you're sitting there and you're just kind of like searching for the right words to do it instead of just rattling off something that you think somebody would want to hear.
I tend to agree. Jason, I just have to throw it in there. In addition to wanting your comments on this, I have to let you know that Joseph Manna has declared at Rob Schuh, Jason gets my vote for best dressed.
Wow.
I mean, we haven't sourced the entire crowd here, but one vote right now wins the prize. So in addition to your speech accepting the award for best dress, what were your thoughts on the Christian Watson statement around Trey Lance as a phenomenal leader and that dude?
I don't really have too much to say about Christian Watson after you get a praise like that. I mean, look at these 2 guys that I'm sitting next to. And like, if you believe that, then hey, man, that's great. If you like it, I love it, basically. But in terms of Christian Watson, he got asked that question a bunch of times when he was in Mobile. Croc asked him that question. I got a chance to talk with him after the game about linking back up with Trey. Obviously, in DSU, it's very simple, and 49er fans seem to be enamored. Also, Jordan made a good point when he was speaking with somebody. I ear hustled him a little bit when he talked about how the discussion around Christian Watson and Trey Lance is going to be accentuated because of the connection that Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow have, which I would proceed to tell you guys to maybe pump the brakes on that just a little bit, just because that's not an apples to apples comparison. But I can see why 49er fans will make that discussion or make that connection. In terms of what he said about Trey Lance, that is the same sort of thing that he was saying in Mobile the entire time. Again, it's not scripted. He talked about off the record too. I believe he spoke with Jennifer Lee Chan right after he got off the podium, talking about how Trey's walking him through the process of what he needs to do. And remember, Trey never went through a combine. The combine was obviously taken away last year because of COVID. But what Christian Watson was saying today echoed many of the things that he said in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Didn't really change up much. Didn't really seem like he was thinking about it. So that should go to show you what he really thinks of him. And when you hear that dude, that guy, I know that Jordan, put it in a way that makes sense in terms of, talking about us. But with him, that is something that he's reiterated over and over when other people ask him those things. So I really believe that he thinks that. And when he talked about joining NDSU, it was talking about winning championships and things like that. And obviously we know that Trey had done that in the FCS with them. So I really didn't feel like his answers didn't push me closer to, I guess, having positive thoughts about Trey, because he had been saying the same things over and over. So I don't feel any more confident. I feel the same just because these are the things that he's been saying.
I tend to agree that it didn't change my opinion, but that's because I already had a positive opinion of Trey Lance. Ellis10 coming in to say, I know wide receiver is not a 49er priority, but I'd love to see Christian Watson reunite with Trey Lance, as would I. That would be phenomenal. Tuffy Muffy just came in to donate a few bucks, much appreciated, but then had the comment, Tuffy Muffy, Big J in Indy, props, Jordan. All right, and that Niner guy also apparently giving the nod to Jason in that it's the pocket square.
I think so too.
That was the difference. Ben Meyerson asking, any chance Jimmy gets cut? I will say in that candid conversation with Matt Mayoko, I was surprised to hear him say that he believed if the 49ers are unable to trade Jimmy Garoppolo, that yes, in fact, prior to the new league year, he could see a scenario where the Niners cut him.
If push comes to shove, that's what has to happen. It has to happen. I know that's not the ideal situation, but yeah, I mean, I would believe that, especially when you consider there's a $7.5 million injury guarantee on Jimmy Garoppolo if he does fail a physical somewhere else. So who knows? There's a lot to play right here. I feel like that was something that was kind of a monkey wrench that was thrown into everything today, just because we had found out today about the surgery on the shoulder. But apparently I wouldn't read too deep into it. I would just say that he tried to rehab it and he thought that would be the best course of action. And then when you find out that rehab is not, then you have to turn to surgery. So I wouldn't say that there was something that was like premeditated or something like that.
No, it was interesting in the presser where John Lynch came out, really clarified about it being something that, hey, he went into the doctor. They said, we'll give it some rest to see if it improves. And then when he comes back, they'll determine if surgery is needed. Well, he had that follow-up appointment and they determined surgery was needed. He seemed to really drive home the idea that it was a very standard process, that it was a very standard type of surgery. He did say, hey, no surgery is minor, but this is a minor surgery, right? He gave that wink, wink, nudge, nudge there. All right, let's transition a little bit. Going to take this opportunity to bring Raphael562Niners, a sneakerhead on the channel, in to remind you to like this video if you enjoy the content. Help get our signal out there so that more people see this beautiful panel of three amazing individuals. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and subscribe to these fine gentlemen on Twitter or YouTube, respectively. All right, let's get into a couple of these quick topics to close it out. Several people had some Deebo Samuel comparisons. It seems like his name was a popular one to bring up. It was something that Mike McDaniel touched on, where he said, you don't just go out and find a Deebo Samuel. You don't go specifically looking for a Deebo Samuel type player. You had Traylon Burks also with the comparison to Deebo Samuel. I understand that coming off a season like this for Deebo Samuel, it's going to be the popular move to bring up a wide receiver like Deebo and say, hey, what type of skill set do you have that matches up with Deebo? But were you surprised to hear his name so many times today?
No, I mean, I think that's what happens. People see a player and they want to draft a player. Like for years, it was Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill takes off with the Chiefs. Now everybody wants to draft these speedy receivers that they think they can turn into these big play threats. If you remember with that draft where the 49ers ended up getting Ayuk and Justin Jefferson's in that draft, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, you have a very talented group of receivers. Henry Ruggs was the first one taken off the board, and a lot of people believe it's because the Raiders kind of wanted their own version of Tyreek Hill. So I think one thing that's, always going to happen in the NFL, it's going to be a constant as long as the league exists, is if you find an advantage, whether it's scheme, personnel decisions, roster building strategy, eventually other teams are going to catch up and try and mimic it. So, yeah, I'm sure that teams are seeing the 49ers have this success where if you draft this physical, versatile receiver that you can line up all over, put in the backfield, hand the ball off to, like the more ways that you can get the ball to your best players in creative situations, like it's going to be beneficial. And for the most part, you can't do it at the way, like you can do that at like junior football with youth football. You can have a guy play all over the place and just the best athletes dominate. In the NFL, everybody's the best athlete on the field at the same time. So it's really hard, which is why I would conclude that statement with there really isn't another Deebo Samuel. But if there was ever going to be someone who I could see like doing that same role, it is Treylon Burks, because I think Treylon Burks is going to be a sensational player. I was extremely impressed with the way he handled that press conference at his media availability too. Very well spoken, very eloquent, very, I asked him, hey, would you embrace a role similar to what Debo had? Didn't even hesitate. He said, absolutely, right on the spot. So I think he is somebody who is capable of kind of being someone that you could throw in the slot for 5-10 snaps a game. You could have line up out wide. You could have run end routes. You could give the ball to out of the backfield 4 or 5 times a game. So I don't want to contradict myself, but while I say there's only one Debo Samuel, if there ever is going to be a fair comparison for the players coming out this season, Treylon Burks is the one where I'll sit here and I'll entertain it, because I think that he is somebody who could do a lot of the same things.
Well, Jamal Armstrong, you may have seen him on Eric Crocker's channel coming in. Treylon Burks, wide receiver 1. I thought he handled that press conference extremely well also. What were your thoughts on hearing Debo Samuel's name coming up continually, Jason?
I mean, it's been happening all season. I mean, one wide receiver takes a jet sweep and all of a sudden they get used like Debo Samuel, and that's not true at all. I mean, if you watch anybody, I mean, I saw Jamar Chase take one jet sweep and they were like, they want to use him like Debo. No, they don't. You obviously don't watch their games. He had like 4 touches from the backfield, but it's pretty funny because Eric DeCosta, the Ravens general manager, actually echoed those sentiments in terms of it's a copycat league. He was like, you're going to have an advantage for 6 weeks until everybody's going to go ahead and try to duplicate that. And that was on the heels of Jordan asking a question about Lamar Jackson in terms of how people play quarterback now at this point. You see a distinct advantage. You want to duplicate that. This is how the league is at this point. And it is very, very dismissive of Debo Samuel to believe that you can think that someone else can do what he does because what he does is so special. But it doesn't surprise me just because that's the way the league is going. And I think that Jordan hit on very many good points, including the Tyreek Hill thing, because everyone was looking for that Tyreek Hill. Put it like this. The Chiefs were so afraid that Tyreek Hill was not going to play for them that they drafted Mecole Hardman just to fill that role. And they thought that that would be the quick fix. And obviously you find out Mecole Hardman is not Tyreek Hill. And maybe Tyreek Hill is really special. Same thing goes for Debo Samuel. You're always going to try to find guys that can somewhat replicate what he's done, but you're never going to find the actual person that can do it. And that's just a testament to how good Debo Samuel is.
Debo is one of one. Gustavo said so himself. Love it. I'm going to bring in this quick question right after I announce that Dale Peters is the newest member of the channel, our latest sneakerhead. I know you two are both very excited about these additional sneakerheads.
Hell yeah.
Let's go, Dale.
Yep.
Let's go, Dale.
Dustin Kohler, my buddy Dustin, a loyal Lions fan. So, have some sympathy here. Dustin coming in with a question at Rob. What is everyone's realistic, keyword, realistic expectation of next season with Trey Lance starting? Jason, if we're just going record off the cuff, we're not going to hold you to this. What do you see the 49ers being next season with Trey Lance at the helm?
We're talking to Dustin right now?
We are talking to Dustin.
Dustin, it's really hard right now because we don't know what this roster is going to look like. There's about 31 free agents at this point, and there's a world where 31 of these guys don't come back. Now, is that something that's possible? No. So it would be kind of foolish right now for me to tell you what I believe with this team. Let's just say the core pieces are back because they will be back, and you'll get some of those guys back. It still wouldn't be crazy to think that this team can win 10 games again, at least bare minimum, just based on the core that they have, the coaching that they have, and what they'll do in terms of developing people. But it is so early right now, especially because now we're getting into all this draft stuff, and we don't know what free agents are actually coming back. So I'll give you 10 wins at minimum, but also I preface that by saying I get the right to change my mind when I get to see how this roster is actually going to get turned out. But I'll say 10 wins today.
Keeping a mulligan in his back pocket. I love it. Jordan, how do you feel?
10 wins is the floor, and anything less would be less than ideal. And it wouldn't be an indictment solely on Trey Lance. I don't think that one player, is responsible for an entire team's win-loss record. But based on the track record with this front office and based on the core players who are under contract and who will be back, if you get moderately good quarterback play, you should be a 10-win team. Like, it shouldn't even be that much of a, obstacle to get to that, as hard as it is to win games in the NFL. If you have a team that's this good with an offensive mind that's as good as Kyle Shanahan, a defensive coordinator that's as good as D'Amico Ryans, 10 wins should be like the expectation at this point. And again, I'm somebody where I was preaching like, hey, making the playoffs is a big deal for a team that hasn't been able to do it. You need to start making it. You need to get there before you can start having it be an expectation. Well, guess what? They got there. Now it's time to build on some of that continuity. And again, if they were having all these free agents and they didn't have a Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Debo Samuel, a player like that under contract who's going to be there next season, then I might feel a little differently. But they have just stud George Kittle. I don't want to leave anybody out. They have studs at a lot of positions. Even a guy like Jimmy Ward, Eric Armstead, these guys who may not get that superstar status. Like, this roster is loaded. So I don't think Trey Lance really comes in and is so bad that he's going to, he'll have growing pains, but I don't think it's going to be to the point where the Niners are a 7 or 8 win team. And I also don't expect him to come in and win 13, 14 games right away. So somewhere between that 10 to 12 range for me is really comfortable. Again, remembering that, which I have to remind myself all the time, the NFL does have 17 games now. So if you go 12-5, 11-6, that's objectively like a really good season. But I do think 10-7 is kind of what the expectation should be. And in my opinion, wouldn't be, a bad outcome if it were to fall that way next season.
No, I feel similarly that a 10-7 season would be a great first year for Trey Lance, and it's one that most likely ends with the 49ers in the playoffs. Once again, I will go one step further, even in attempting to be realistic, and set the floor for me at 11 wins for the San Francisco 49ers. And it is because of the reasons that these two fine gentlemen just laid out, that not everything falls on Trey Lance, that with, good, average, slightly above average quarterback statistical play, the 49ers were able to get to the NFC Championship game. So I don't think I'm going out on too big of a limb there to say Trey Lance, with his added weapons that he brings to the table, can get those 11 wins. Ken Fashion Journey coming in. Hi, Rob. I was so overwhelmed by you guys, and I just remembered that Grant Cohn is missing from your roundtable, not to mention Jesse Naylor, too. Yes, if either one of those gentlemen were here in Indianapolis, they would be invited to said roundtable. Guaranteed. We would bring in an extra chair. Somebody could sit right there. I mean, we got beverages on the table, but those could be moved. Let me tell you, we would make room. All right, we got 49ers first takes coming in. Stoked for all three of you guys. Rob and Jason, I respect the hell out of you guys. So freaking rad seeing you guys at the Combine. Aaron, much appreciated. Yeah, appreciate the sentiment. Appreciate the super chat. That's very cool of you to come in.
It's my New York guy, my New York Niner fan guy.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's get into one of our last topics here and talk just briefly on Trey McBride talking about George Kittle. George Kittle was not on everybody's tongue as Deebo Samuel was, but it was specifically referenced in Trey McBride talking about, people that he looked up to within the league, people he emulated within the league. And to me, that's still something that George Kittle and the 49ers should be proud of, is that they do have a top talent at the tight end position. And so to me, it does speak to the quality of the 49ers team. And again, George Kittle, although it wasn't a statistical monster of a season, that he's still someone these young guys are looking up to. Jason, what were your thoughts on those comments?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because, a lot of these guys, and Kittle was the first one to bring it up, especially because he comes from Iowa. You can't play tight end if you can't block. And there are receiving tight ends, and that's fine, and they do what they do. But a lot of these guys look up to Kittle because they use him as teach tape for many of these players. And I got a chance to speak with Trey briefly after the Senior Bowl, and talked about, hey, man, we got to get you over there with the 49ers. And he said something to the effect of, I would love to be there. Now, obviously, you would love to be drafted by any team. But now, on the back of these George Kittle comments, starts to seem like he understands where he can fit in very well and be utilized. So it's less about just being happy to be drafted. And maybe the 49ers are an actual destination. But in terms of what he's done in the college season, during the Senior Bowl, feel like he'll just be a little bit out of the 49ers reach unless they make something drastic happen. But it was really nice to hear that, because George Kittle is the prototypical all-around tight end. And I feel that all of the younger tight ends in the league want to emulate that, because that's how you really build your value and build your money in this league.
Love it, Jason. Jordan, what were your thoughts on hearing that from Trey McBride about George Kittle?
I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, if you want to say that you block well and you catch the ball well and you're good after the catch, they're really, isn't somebody else that comes to mind right away outside of maybe, Travis Kelce. And I know 49ers fans think he doesn't block. He does. He just doesn't have these, highlight reel pancake blocks like George Kittle. So I understand somebody, having Kittle be somebody they model their game after and like in their game too. It's the utmost praise to be mentioned in the same, sentences him as a tight end. So yeah, I just think it's, great to see that the 49ers have a player that a lot of young players at the same position are looking up to. And I think it's really great the work that George Kittle does with his tight end university and the way that he and, Travis Kelce and Darren Waller and Mark Andrews and some of these guys are really kind of making tight ends be a position that a lot of these great young athletes want to play. Before, it always felt like they would just kind of take these guys who were, power forwards in basketball and kind of have them, switch over to football later in their careers. You had guys like Julius Thomas, who never really played football at a high level, and is at Portland State, I think. And then he ends up going to the Broncos and winning a Super Bowl and catching touchdown passes for Peyton Manning. So it's cool that these guys now, maybe you get these guys who are in youth football who want to play tight end. You get these guys coming up through the pipeline who actually want to go out there and be tight ends. It's becoming, I don't want to say a glamour position because that sounds like, it's like a dig at it, but it's not just this position where it's like, hey, you might catch like 2 passes in this game and you're blocking pretty much 80% of the time. And I think that George Kittle and Travis Kelce and a lot of the work that they do outside of the field, off the field for the various, camps and workouts and stuff they do has really made, like, they've paved the way for a future generation of tight ends. And again, I would just like to throw the pioneer label out there. I think that George Kittle is a pioneer in his own right, and he should be saluted for it.
In the mold.
I love it. They brought glamour to an unglamorous position. Speaking of glamour, JC coming in. These are compliments, intended as compliments, I'm sure. Talking about some fits here. JC saying, Jason looks like he's a mob henchman. And conversely, on the other side of the spectrum, JC says, Rob looks like a Harvard professor. So I'm thinking that you're looking a little cooler in that comparison than I am. But then we have, coming in, Leo, for everyone, y'all look professional as you know what that F means. Mm-hmm. You know what that F means. I love it. I absolutely love it. Let's close this thing out talking about a positive development. It is sounding like Mack is back, ladies and gentlemen. Alex Mack looking like he will not retire this offseason. That means if, as John Lynch said today, Mike McGlinchey is looking on track to be back at the right tackle spot, you all know we have locked down the left tackle spot. If we have Mack in the middle, that means 60% of the line is locked down, leaving those guard spots undecided at this point. To me, this is a huge sigh of relief because going into the offseason, feeling like we only had potentially 20% of the offensive line locked down, with 80% being undecided, to now get to a simple majority of 3 positions feeling like they are cemented at this point, it gives me great comfort. Jordan, what's your sense of the 49ers offensive line situation and the news about Alex Mack specifically?
Well, first of all, Alex Mack is a graduate of UC Berkeley, so it's go Bears all the time, 24/7, even when I'm 2,000 miles away from my home in the Bay Area. So, I'm always going to be happy when the 49ers bring a Cal player on the roster and then retain said player, or said player decides to keep playing. So salute to you, Alex Mack, go Bears. I also think that Rob makes a great point that the more continuity they can get on the line, the better. And now this puts them in a position where, again, Laken Tomlinson has played very well. He's been very durable. And another team might be in a better position to pay Laken Tomlinson than the 49ers are. I think there's a certain number the 49ers have to draw a line in the sand with and walk away from. And I think Laken Tomlinson's play has more than justified him eclipsing that. So you get to a position where then maybe you bring back Brunskill even on a 1-year deal, and then you have a left guard spot to fill. And hey, maybe Aaron Banks gets moved back to his natural position. He looks better. Maybe you bring back Tomlinson, then you only have the right guard spot to fill. Like, yes, you'd like to have, some level of continuity on the line, but the stability is the main thing. And by having 3 mainstays return and having 3/5 of that line back, you allow yourself to only have 2 holes to plug, which even if you get league average level play, allows you to have some kind of stability where, while it may not be taking over games in a positive way, you're also not coming in on Monday like, okay, well, the offensive line got destroyed and this is why we lost this game. Like, the 49ers are putting themselves in a position where they can allow the offensive line to just be slightly above average across the board. And that doesn't take anything away from the players on it. Just that's all they need to be, is not be a unit that's a detriment to the team. And that's something that when you're replacing 3/5 of your offensive line, potentially, or 4/5, like Rob mentioned, like, it's kind of hard to be like, hey, just go get 4 starting offensive linemen. If it was that easy, teams' offensive lines wouldn't be bad. So again, I don't want to just ramble about the same thing, but this is very good news for a lot of reasons. So yeah,
totally agree. And when you look at those 3 positions, they are most definitely the 3 most important positions along the line. I mean, it's going to be evidenced by how much San Francisco doles out in assets, whether it is money or draft assets, in order to fill those 2 remaining interior line spots. 2 guard positions seem to be ones that the 49ers deprioritize in comparison to the tackles, or certainly the center. To me, having Mac back as that savvy veteran who controls the protections at the line of scrimmage for Trey Lance, huge news. Your thoughts, Jason?
I think it's great news. I think that this offense operates at its most efficient point when they have a center. I mean, I think that you can see the it's not a steep decline, but it is a decline after Weston Richburg got injured. And I think that it's important to have a guy who can step in. And the other thing I want to point out is that this would probably, I don't want to say certainly, but probably will be Alex Mack's final season. So there's still the possibility that you can draft a guy who can sit behind and get ready to fulfill that role. And as we all know, the 49ers are really good for making sure that their rookies sit 1 year, because that's the best way they can learn. Obviously, I'm clearly making a joke right here, but they can still address the position. And it is a relief to know that this offensive line can at least remain this intact, because as Rob and Jordan talked about, it was a very stark reality and a very real possibility that the only returning offensive lineman from this 49ers team would have been Trent Williams, which is a fine place to start when you have the best left tackle in the world. But now you're talking about 4 question marks at this point, and then that would be based on injury, play, free agency, and things like that. So continuity is key, but also it puts the 49ers in a spot where they have continuity. They can operate the offense the same way that they want to, but they can also bring in the center of the future, as we've seen how big and important the center position is for the 49ers and this offense.
I look for that. I look for, hopefully, the San Francisco 49ers to retain Laken Tomlinson, but I agree with my esteemed colleague Jordan that seems to be a little far-fetched. I do think the 49ers can fill one of those guard spots with the potential replacement for Alex Mack. That seems like a very clear transition for me. I want to say thank you to everyone that has been a part of this initial roundtable conversation. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the little like button down in the corner. It will amplify the message for all of us. Consider subscribing. Go follow these 2 fine gentlemen on Twitter. There's going to be another episode of the Sprint Right Option podcast that is going to be recorded in mere moments, people. You need to get over there for that. It is going to be fantastic. I'm going to close us out on Ellis 10 because he speaks truth here. You look good, you feel good. You feel good, you play good. These are 3 fine gentlemen that are looking good tonight, that, speaking for myself, are feeling good, and speaking for all 3 of us, just crushed this podcast. So certainly playing well. Thank you so much for being a part of it, Jason and Jordan. You were fantastic inaugural guests here on my late night set that we've created here, and I appreciate you joining the conversation.
No, we appreciate you having, and we've been having a blast, and there's still more to come, so that doesn't mean that this is just the end of it. So I mean, we'll be here at least until Monday, and there's a lot more to talk about, and let's see what else happens. So yeah.
It is just the beginning, and even tonight there's more stuff, right? You're going to go record that podcast. We're going to go out, get a bite to eat. We're hopefully going to eavesdrop on John Lynch. It's going to be fantastic, man.
And maybe other general managers contemplating what it would take to get a winning quarterback, which would just be the small fee of your first round pick. Just a small fee. Small fee.
Gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure. I will be back on tomorrow. We'll be doing the Sneakerhead call-in show. Look for updates on that. I look forward to finishing out this week with these fine gentlemen. It is just getting started. This is just day 2. We will be here for another 5 days. So keep looking for that content. Thank you so much for joining us. Will you gentlemen do the honor of cheersing that camera right there as I normally would do? Until then, 49er faithful, cheers.